You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to Live and Lead for Impact. I'm Kirsten Ross, your host, and this is episode number 153. You are in for a huge treat. I have an amazing guest. I got to share. We've already been having some really cool conversations, so I can't wait for you to hear what he's going to be sharing with us today. So his name is Phillip Andrew, and he's an Emmy-Nominated Los Angeles-based television producer who's been asked to speak around the country, educating and encouraging high school and college students through high-energy entertainment and unforgettable storytelling. And I know he's going to have some great stories and words of wisdom for you today. So thanks for tuning in, and thank you, Phillip, for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me. I always feel like whenever I hear the high energy, like there's always that weird person inside me that wants to come out and be like, hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Yes, this is me this is me, very, very high energy. I don't know what it is.
Or sometimes do you feel like, woo, the bar's been set high. I bet he really bring it.
No, if anything, I feel like it's a warning label for people. Like, like it's my own warning label of get ready.
Yeah, look out.
Because I love to, I am definitely there's not a lot of people that when they introduce me, they go, oh yeah, Phil, really chill guy.
Yeah, right. A little wallflower,
Yeah, definitely not. So, but no, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to connect.
Yeah, so let's dive right in and just share briefly. I know your story's out there and they can visit your website to see more about you, but just briefly share, what are some of the life experiences that have motivated you to make your big impact in the world?
Definitely. Well, I think it's always a great question to just kind of start with, who is this guy that I'm listening
what the
to
heck?
on this podcast, and why do I care? I've got 2 seconds to hook you guys, so hang with me. So, but as you mentioned, my name is Phillip Andrew. I am a Los Angeles-based television producer, but I am originally, just like you, originally from Michigan. Grew up in Metro Detroit, about 10 minutes from downtown. For anyone that is in Michigan, I grew up downriver, Melvindale High School graduate. And, for me growing up, it was an interesting kind of combination because my father was a retired police chief, or he is now, but he was a cop growing up. And so I kind of grew up always with this idea of wanting to kind of be this perfect kid, being the cop's kid and having that expectation of what that meant. But then I hung out with a lot of older kids on my street. So I was the youngest kid on my block. So I would hang out with all of these older kids. And so I was torn between wanting to make my father and mother happy and be this perfect little shining straight A good athlete student, right? Mm-hmm. And then I didn't want to be the cop's kid. I didn't want to be the school board member's kid. I wanted to be, tough and rough with the kids on the street. So I kind of had that little bit from an early age, that little bit of being torn between, two lives, but the masks, right?
The personas, yeah.
Personas, totally. And, for me, the quick way that it all kind of ended up spiraling was, when those guys were 16, 17, 18, and they started drinking and using, drugs and things like that, more so drinking. But, for me, I was 11 when I started drinking with these guys at parties and getting drunk. And it became, for me, I didn't really have a lot of the coping skills yet. I hadn't learned those things. So when I was always in my head, and then when the alcohol kicked in, it gave me that temporary release. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my goodness, my little 11-year-old brain was like, oh my gosh, this is an answer.
My superpower.
Superpower, yeah. And so then, that continued through, middle school through high school. When I was 14 years old, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. When I was 15 years old, she lost that battle and passed away. So a week before my 16th birthday, she's gone. And now you have a kid that already kind of had a little bit of, just dealing with kind of finding my feet in the world. You throw in a little bit of issues with alcohol. Now you throw a deceased parent in there. And I'm just kind of a nice little recipe for destructive behavior. And So, I think a lot of the problems that I had, or one of the issues that you see a lot of times is, I was still performing well in school. I was still on the honor roll, involved in student council, had a lot of friends, played on the sports teams. And, I think for me, I desperately thought that I always joke I wanted to be Stifler from American Pie. Like that was who I was chasing, like I wanted to be the wild one, the crazy guy that, that person. And, but I didn't realize how much pain it was hiding, like I didn't really know how to process the passing of my mother. I didn't really know, I really didn't have the skills to cope. And so that led me to, abusing, substance and alcohol. And, for me, that was, you crashed my car at 18 on I-75, crashed my car on the freeway, 18 years old, 19 was arrested, 20 was arrested, got arrested again at 22, all for alcohol related offenses. And so it was just, it wasn't a smart move, right? I was doing a lot of bad stuff that I'm not proud of. And because I just didn't really know how to handle what I was going through. I didn't know that and that's the crazy, I think, the thing that I look back on, and in the moment, I didn't realize what I was doing.
Well,
I
you
didn't
were
realize,
making it work for the most part. I mean, because the other aspects of your life, of course, the arrests were little indicators, right? But
yeah. Well, and that's something that I feel is really, I always kind of talk about that with people, and I have to remind it for myself, because it's totally possible, or it was for me. I would allow success in one area of my life to justify poor decision making in another area. Or, it was, oh, well, I'm not an alcoholic because I'm on the dean's list. Or, right. Oh, that's not who I am because of this thing. Like I've got this one success, and I was allowing that to overshadow, the pain that I was going through. Or I thought, the scary thing is when, you justify why you're allowed to hang on to your anger. And now that can be a dangerous place, is when, well, I'm allowed to be this way because my mom's gone. Well, this happened to me. So you know what? Like, yeah, whatever. It's knowing that you should be doing things a different way. And then instead of accepting the challenge of growing your character and being a stronger person and fighting through some of the hardship, it's saying, it's feeling entitled to your pain and feeling
giving yourself license.
Exactly. And I mean, we know entitlement. I mean, talk about a self-imposed prison, right? And so I think that was one of those things where, for me, in the way that it all ended, or I should say that the way that it amazingly began for me was, at 22, I graduated Michigan State in 3.5 years, was overachieving in that element, was getting ready to move out to California. And in 11 days before I moved, I got pulled over and received a DUI in the city where my dad is a former police chief from the newest cop on the force that didn't recognize the last name. And man, talk about getting exactly what I needed. And in that moment, it was like, then the court case came, everything became real. Everything became very real. And I remember feeling like, man, once I get to California, and I always laugh with buddies about this, because Los Angeles is a wild place. It really can be. You got a lot of people, you got a lot of different types of people, a lot of different types of activities. And I remember being like, oh, well, once I get to LA, I won't party as much. Right. Like, this is what I was telling myself. And I knew that was wrong.
Right.
But I was like, oh, yeah, once I get to LA, like, I'll kind of calm down. Like, I want to be doing work, blah, 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 blah. And man, I'm so grateful that it happened before I left Michigan, where I had the support system. I had my family, my friends. And then that was it. I got into 12-step, started learning a lot about and it wasn't just about addiction or about alcohol. It was just about me. It was learning about who I am, why I do the things that I do, what are the obstacles that I'm putting in my own way. And then also, you learn it's about you in that, or you get focused on you, to then focus and realize it's not about you. It's there's so many other people that have issues and are going through things that it was like, I'm not the most important person in the world. And me at 22 to get that lesson,
Amazing.
it's been, I feel very grateful for my path with all that. I wish I would have, maybe figured out a little bit sooner. But it's, it definitely has benefited me now, in many areas, in many elements with my life.
Oh, for sure. I mean, at 22, that is still so early. I know in that environment, I know some things about that world, and I know you were probably embraced by the older people in recovery, because it's unusual for someone that young to be so invested in it and the growth that happens.
It was, I joke, I've always respected I was raised to respect my elders. And it was like, I respected you enough to where I wouldn't like push you down the stairs. Right. Like, but I didn't have a very big appreciation for the knowledge that could come from somebody that had already been there. It felt too disconnected. Like, you're old, you're from a different time. I don't care.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like to be me now. Right? Like the whole thing of being just a human and being a kid. But when I got into recovery and I started being able to talk, and I would listen to, I'm in there at 22, but I'm listening to somebody 35, somebody 45, somebody 55, 65, and I'm listening to them talk about their emotions and how they feel and their insecurities. And I'm like, wait a minute, I feel that way. Wait, why do I feel the same way as you?
Right.
And it completely, it gave me such an appreciation to stop putting so many labels on things. I'm like, oh, well, you're in your 50s, so you're this, or so blah, blah, blah. And I was able to connect with people and learn from people. And I mean, there's so, like, the amount of wisdom that is in our worlds that we don't take advantage of. And I say we, I'm speaking for everyone. I shouldn't. It's me. The amount of people that were in my world that I was not giving the appropriate amount of time to listen to them. Like, all I was doing was shortchanging myself.
And isolating yourself, right? There are opportunities to connect and find similarities, but if we're saying like, you don't get me and I don't get you, can't learn.
I love that you just said the word similarities, because it was, two of the things that really stood out and stuck with me those early, months of getting into recovery, was I remember somebody saying to me, hey, Phil, look, it will be really easy for you to compare yourself out of this program. And it's like, if you only come here and compare, you will not stick around. Like, it's unlikely. But if you can just focus on relating with people, you got a shot. And it was like, here, he was like, relate instead of compare. And that has been now a big part of, that has helped me in not only just my life, that's helped me in TV producing, always being able to relate with people, searching for the similarities and not focusing on the differences. I was 22. I would go to meetings at times, and I was the youngest person by 20, 25 years.
Yep.
And it would have been really easy for me to just compare myself out. And it was that idea. It was the idea of relating and not comparing. And then it was the idea and the power of the word yet. And it was like, hey, you might have not destroyed your family yet. You might not have 3 DUIs. You might not have a divorce. You might not have kids that don't want to be around you. You might not have gotten fired yet. Yet. And it was like, and if you continue on this path, the destructive path, all of those things can be yours. Behind door number 3, here is your second door. And so it was those two things were so impactful for me.
I love that.
Here I am still talking about them, 11 years later.
Well, and to kind of, I'm thinking also just the way our country is right now, and I wish more people would embrace that relate versus compare. And I also think of it as frame of reference comes to mind too. Like, we can either look and focus on our differences, or we can look to establish where we are the same and can relate and can connect and can understand one another. and too often what's happening right now is, in social media and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not going to sidetrack down all that, but
Sure.
just an emphasis on where we differ or where we disagree, where actually we're so similar.
Well, and I think one of the things is a lot of times we almost have to ask ourselves, like, what are we getting out of it? Right? Like, I'd ask you, like, if you're, if when people are online or you're disagreeing, or it's like, what are you getting out of getting into the argument with the person?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the emotion? Like, what's the emotion you're chasing? Is it so that you feel better than somebody else?
Yeah.
Right? Is it so that
use my big words?
Right? What are you getting out of this? Like, and I think, with coaching, that's such one of the key fundamental questions of a lot of the coaching that I do, and people, like me that study the way that I do, that we do. It's like, does this serve you? It's a very simple question. This behavior you're engaged in, this thought process you're engaged in, the way that you're operating, the way you're acting. Does this serve you? Does this serve? And now here's the key. That's a lot easier to answer when you know what your bigger goal is, when you know what you're actually working towards. So I think a problem is being in this very combative, at times, there's so many people that see things so, combative with this side versus this side, or me versus you, or us versus them. And if you can shift your mindset, like, and be able to, see it more as an us, like, hey, it's not us at two ends of the
spectrum.
the road. Yeah. Or two, it's not a tug of war. Like, what if instead of it looking at everything as a tug of war of my side, your side, one of us is going to win, one is going to lose? Like, we realize, like, no, what if we're all running in the same direction together, trying to build a better future for ourselves? Right. And if we look at it where we're actually all on a team and we're all partners in this thing, like, even in I just finished a great book by Chris Voss, is a former FBI negotiator. He has a book called Never Split the Difference. And he talks in there about how when you go into a negotiation, like, you need to be like that. The person you're negotiating with, you look at them as your partner. You don't look at them as your enemy. You look at them as your partner, so that you guys can get to a deal. Right. So you can find something that ends up in the best negotiation is going to be something where people both walk away feeling good.
Everybody wins. Yeah.
And that is a possibility for us. And he talks about, he jokes about, like, empathy being, empathy is not agreeing with the person.
Right.
It's at least being, but it's understanding where they're coming from. And if we haven't, and I think that's where people should challenge themselves. If we're not able to put ourselves in the shoes of another person and try to, assume that, hey, they actually are thinking of this, like, maybe I don't agree with their mindset, but they're coming at this thought in a certain way. Like, maybe I should try to figure it out so I better understand them. If we're not able to do that, then sorry to tell you, check your maturity.
Right.
Flat out, check your maturity level. Because if you're unable, if you're so quick to cast people aside and feel that their opinions are wrong and that yours is right, how are you any different than a little kid?
Right. Get in the movie of their mind a little bit. Like, what's the story? What's their experience? How are they looking at things? Their perspective a little bit.
And I think, asking questions, asking powerful questions is so important. And it's just like, one of the things that I've learned through TV producing and coaching as well is just about asking questions, in being genuinely curious about the answers, and, not having an agenda. Like, we should start. I kind of joke with people. I go, I wish that every conversation had to start with at least 30 minutes of let's just talk this thing out, and let's not put any judgment on anything yet. Like, hey, you can have your opinion. I've got my opinion, but let's just throw out ideas. Let's just ask questions and answer them and see what we can get to before we have this need to start labeling what we think is right and wrong.
Oh my gosh. And how often have you coached someone through, like, they reach a conclusion, you're like, you know what, you got to do a little work on bringing other people's along your journey. They might get to the same place or might not, but, like, they're not walking through how they reach that conclusion. There's that, that journey that people need to take together.
Oh, totally. And that's, that's like teachers learn that, right? Like that's the difference between 2 + 2 = 4 and memorizing that versus knowing the concept behind that. So
Right.
it's like, taking, if you just tell a kid 2 + 2 = 4, but you don't explain why, then okay, he's fine every time that 2 + 2 pops up, but he
Right.
doesn't understand
Right.
everything else. And we learn when we're able to connect the dots. So one of the best things that we can even do for people is if um, is ask people questions to allow them to give them the permission to think. And I think that that's one of the things that is crazy about conversation these days is, and we hear a lot, like it's not any like brand new idea that I'm sharing, but we have a lot of times where all we're doing is waiting for our turn. We're waiting, where we ask a question, they're going to talk. We're thinking about what we're going to say when they finish. Are they done yet? Okay, he's done. Great. Here comes mine. And we do this nonstop, and we're not actually really engaged in a real active listening.
Right.
We're just waiting our turn. And then when that happens, like we end up like you don't feel like you don't feel like you understood the other person at all. You don't feel like you were understood. And it's like, so what are we doing? What are we
Right.
doing?
Right. Throwing
And
stuff back and
right. And so that's why it's I really enjoy diving into deep conversation and just one exercise that you can do, as you're listening to this and the next conversations that you decide to get into, um, focus on really listening to what the person's saying, and then focus on follow-up questions. Like that's one of the best things that when I try to help work with people about becoming better listeners, and communicating better, it's focusing on not your opinion and not your advice. You need to silence your advice monster that's inside of you. And how do you come out and ask questions that are powerful follow-up questions? In TV producing, we call it peeling back the onion.
Hmm.
It's asking, so you're really angry at Michelle. Why? What did Michelle do that upset you? Blah 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 blah. Oh, what about that? Where do you think that's coming from? Blah 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 blah. And then that's how you start to follow up. And the goal should be to understand people.
Hmm.
The goal should
Yes.
be to understand someone else's point of view so that you can then either then insert yours or talk about yours, but at least give people permit. Like one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody is to actually genuinely listen to what they have to say.
It is. And it happens so rarely today. So I
Yeah.
call that same kind of thing clarifying conversations. And I encourage people to like don't leave a conversation with unanswered questions. Because too often it's just a fear one, we're not focused on that, but also there's that fear element of I don't want them to think I don't understand, so I'll just figure it out later, or I'll just
Yeah.
assume, and then you're in that world of assumption, which, try to stay out of there.
Oh man, I actually love when I'm in a conversation. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, well, what do you mean
Hmm.
you don't know? You don't have an opinion about it? It's like, no, I don't, because I don't know enough about it. Like, I don't know enough about
Hmm.
how if we did A, I don't know how that impacts everyone. And if we did B, I don't know how that's going to impact. So like, rather than me trying to come up with something based on, 1.5% of the information, I'm just going to say like, hey, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. And it doesn't make it, it doesn't make me any less smart than somebody that just
Right.
throws out a bunch of assumptions and just
Right.
makes things up.
Makes you
Um,
smarter, and it expands your
yeah,
ability to make more happen because you're utilizing the experiences and perspectives of others
yeah,
beyond what you can come up with or surmise.
yeah.
Awesome. So I want to quickly, like, I love that you're sharing, tools already for people. But I want to make sure that they know the kinds of work that you do. Like, what is the impact that you're working to make? And in what ways are you doing that? How are you serving others?
Yeah, so I always joke, like when people find out like all the random things that I'm into, they're always like, "Dude, how do you do this?" I'm like, "I'm single." When you're single, you have a ton of time. It's that's always my answer. Like I'm single in LA, like I have tons of time, and so yeah. I mean, my main 9 to 5 career is TV producing, but I also do speaking, coaching and speaking on the side. And that's a massive passion of mine. And so I travel around and I go to high schools and colleges, as well as I speak with inmates in the Los Angeles County jail system. But primarily with the high school kids and college kids, I focus on peer pressure, substance abuse, and social media impact and understanding those things. And so I go, and that is just such a passion of mine. I think for me, I was going through I was going through so many different issues with, the substance abuse and with my mother when I was in high school, that I really have a heart for that age group.
Mm-hmm.
I think those kids are, there's just so much. I mean, the kids these days, they're handling and dealing with so much. And I don't know if we're necessarily, as a generation leading them, if we're giving them the best advice or helping them around
Mm-hmm.
the best. And so I just feel really passionate about, getting in, talking with the kids. For me, there's these things where when my mother passed, and this is probably, if anyone listening has had, if you had any type of, traumas when you were in high school or middle school, high school, you can relate with, there are a lot of people that will come out and adults will say, hey, Derek, look, man, I know things are really tough right now. If you need to talk, I'm here for you,
Mm-hmm.
and we think, and that's great, right? And we love that, and that's a great thing, and it's a nice thing to say. But honestly, that's really not doing much for Derek, because what we're asking kids is we're telling them how to do something that we're not showing them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to model authenticity, and model transparency, and model vulnerability. Like if we
Mm-hmm.
want kids, if we want students, if you want your kids to understand what that looks like, you don't just say, hey, I need you to, hey, you can be authentic. It's okay, buddy. You can trust me. It's like, no, you need to showcase that to people. So
Mm-hmm.
a gift that I have, not being a teacher, not being somebody that they're seeing every day, I get to come into a school and I get to speak with a certain level of authenticity and vulnerability that they're not getting probably on a day-to-day basis. And that also probably sometimes in real reality, it can't come from the person teaching them geography every day.
Right.
So I get the opportunity to come in and share my story. And I very high energy. I tell some fun stories that always then, have some sort of a hook that, can get them thinking. But I always, I end with my story and I talk about it. And for me, it's less about, I never want to, try to romanticize like being arrested or getting into trouble. Like I don't, like that doesn't make me cool. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
give me street cred. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make me a bad boy. And now,
Yeah.
I never played that role. For me, it's much, I don't know what that was. But it's, for me, it's much more about explaining to them, hey, here's the emotion I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I was feeling. And it's like, and showing people that like, hey, your emotions, you can talk about them and they can, and you can get help. There's people that want to help. There's people that are available to help. And knowing that it's okay, knowing that asking for help is probably one of the strongest things you can possibly do. Suffering in silence is definitely, for me, it definitely didn't work. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
too many people that it's the smart thing to do, the smart game plan. And so that's one of the big ways that I'm doing a lot of impact. And it's,
Well, you're creating
it's
that relatability that you experienced for yourself when you started the 12-step program. And as you were talking about offering up, like, hey, if you need a place to talk, like someone to talk to, man, think about the uphill battle of being someone who's having a struggle, the fear that they have to overcome to do something really uncomfortable, to go reach out and talk to someone. Like, yeah, you're right. That is not going to happen.
And the thing, in to tie it back with what we were just talking about active listening,
Mm-hmm.
I learned when I was in high school, I learned how much I needed to tell you for you to get off my back about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the lack of people listening. And that's not their fault, right? Like I had skin in the game too, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I learned when people would ask me, "Hey, Phil, how you doing?" I learned how to put on the face of, "Hey, man, yeah, it's a bummer. I'm really sad. I miss her, but I understand that death happens, and we're just trying to move forward, and I'm just really looking to get back into school, and I'm just really appreciative of my friends and family. And they go, okay, hey, great, man. Like, hey, you need anything, let me know.
And honestly, that's probably encouraging for them because that's what they want to hear. They want to hear that you're doing okay.
Right? It's what they want to hear. And because most people, because here's the thing, and we get it, right? Like, hey, how are you doing? You know what, man? I actually want to kill myself right now.
Yeah.
Most people are not prepared for that answer.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no idea.
Like, well, this is more than I bargained for.
Exactly, right? Wait, I was just asking you a real quick question so I could feel like a good person, dude.
Yeah, like,
wait
dude,
a minute. Now,
good luck with that. Yeah.
Right? And so there's a moment where it's like we have to understand that if you're going to ask somebody, if you really want to show up for people,
right, be ready to invest.
Be ready to invest. And the best thing you can just do, and it's not like all you got to do is just support people and ask questions. If someone had just continued to ask me some questions, I would have said, and here's the other thing, I'm going through that and someone going through tragedy, right? Think of it like at a funeral, right? When you go to a funeral, everyone that comes to the funeral is going to say something to the people that were closest to the person that passed, right? Mm-hmm. The mother, the son, the father, right? So what that person needs to have, how many half-hearted conversations are they going to have?
Yeah.
They're going to have 100, 150 of the exact same question, the exact same exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So they stop having any meaning to the person that needs it the most.
Mm-hmm.
It stops. It's like when to use a less sad thing, it's an actor going on a press tour and having to give every reporter ask the exact same questions about the Avengers.
Yeah.
So that so then they got to give the exact same answer every single time, and they do their best. And they do their best as an actor to make sure it seems that they're being authentic and real, and that they are super excited about the project, and it's going to be a great one. And on June 22nd, you guys need to go out and see it. Yeah. And they have to do that every time, but it's not real because it's they've done it over and over and over again. Right. So the best thing we can do to people is ask them follow-up questions and be genuinely curious with the answers. I hope I kind of tied that all together.
Absolutely. You are like I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but like you are illustrating in a beautiful way like experiences that we all have with others, and whether we're on one side or the other, we're the one going through the difficult time or the one who has good intentions to be there and support. And I think you are illustrating so well the trip ups that we have from either side of that. I'm thinking of how, again, and I love that you talk on social media to young people, because wow, what a challenge that's creating for us. But like the isolation that so many people feel, and then when you're going through a tough time, it's even more isolating. And especially when you see like meal trains and stuff like that happening on social media, but you're not getting the same. And so that comparison thing, but having the difficulty of, but my relationships aren't close enough, I can't reach out. And then meanwhile, there probably are well-intentioned people saying, hey, if you need me, I'm here. But the unwillingness or discomfort in asking. And so, bridging the gap between the two is so important because we need to stay connected as humans.
Oh, and totally. And you said something that just kind of sparked something else for me that I remember reading about. We talk about the isolation and the loneliness that a lot of kids are experiencing these days. Mm-hmm. The baby boomers are one of the loneliest generations ever. They talk about, because of divorce, like we are at a time where we have the most single occupancy households in America that we've ever had. We have more people living alone. We have more people that are isolating. Mm-hmm. And it's not just, and obviously and here's the thing, we always focus on the kids because, right, the kids are the future. And like, I obviously spend a lot of my time there, but you know what? Guess what, folks? We're not dead yet. Mm-hmm. Right? If you're 55 and you're lonely, like it's not time to cash in the chips, mm-hmm. And it's also not time to cast people away. Mm-hmm. We all have value mm-hmm. in our world, and we're all very important, and we all, that's a gift that we can give to everyone, and not just to the kids, just being able to have a real conversation with people. And trust me, it's not something where it's like, oh, well, I've never been good at that. it's like anything, you practice, you get better. You
Mm-hmm.
know, growing up, I was not a great listener. I was a great talker. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to talk. I got in, I was the kid that got in, I got into a lot of trouble in school because I was the kid that would, the homework assignment would come out. I'd hurry up and finish it. And then I'd want to walk around the room and talk to everyone while they were still doing their homework. I didn't really care. I wanted to prove how smart I was. I wanted to do everything. I wanted everyone to see me. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
care about
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
But I have trained myself, and not just alone, like I've had a lot of people that have been, massively huge inspirations and mentors for me in that. But becoming a great listener and good at conversation is a skill. And it really is a skill that we all can work on and get better at. So I would encourage
Mm-hmm.
people, if that sounds like something that you want to dive into, like anytime you say, in coaching, one of the phrases that sparks out and jumps out the most is when someone's like, "Oh, well, that's just how I am." Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always been this way. Oh, well, I was like this as a kid. Like, oh, this is just who I am. It's like, oh, great.
And
We
then they
gotta.
do some of the personality testing and use that to justify, hey,
Oh,
the
yeah.
test shows, and this is how people need to deal
Oh,
with me. There it is in black and white. You're like,
I
that's
was
not the
at
reason for those.
I was at an event last night. So it's I know it's Emmy season, and we were at an Emmys kickoff event and was talking with some people, and that came up where somebody was starting to justify
Yeah.
their behavior
Mm-hmm.
with
Yes.
astrology and things. And hey, whatever anyone is into, like that's cool. And like I want everyone to be happy. You're free to do whatever you want. But when you start seeking evidence
Yeah.
to justify already what you want, which is what a lot of us do, right? Like
Stay stuck. That's the
you
stay
know,
stuck strategies, I call it.
yeah, it's like why do we, and I think that's where people get in with the social media, the dangers of it, where if the algorithms are only showing you articles and news stories that they feel you are already going to like, one of they joke that one of the reasons that we read things over, or we read things that already support our opinions, so we feel smarter.
Yeah.
And it's tapping into a bit of our insecurity that says, like, well, I don't really know, so I'm going to read what I think I already know, so it reinforces what I already know, so that
Right.
I feel that I'm smarter and
Yeah.
I'm more justified in this opinion,
Right.
when we should be trying to, like, hey, I need to read something far right on this. I need to read something on the middle, something far
Yeah.
left. I
Yeah.
need to be able to read a lot of different things and then come up with my own strategy, my own opinion, and what do I think? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the joy of these brains that we've been getting. We're
Yes.
able
Utilize
to
all pieces.
utilize the brain. We are able to create and think, and think our thoughts, and you don't have to be locked in. Like that's some of the dangers with the differences between identity and just thoughts. Right? You can change a thought a lot quicker than you can
Mm-hmm.
change this identity that people have designed for themselves or think that they're a part of. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm all over the place today, everybody.
Oh
I
my
hope you
gosh,
guys
but
enjoyed it.
no, I'm loving it though. Like, hey, I got you. I am with you on this journey. I'm loving everything that you're sharing. And I'm just having so many aha moments. Like I said, I'm like buzzing over here with the energy and with the information and the ideas that you're
I
sparking
love
for
it.
me.
And
So
I think it's a lot of fun. And just really quick, I always just love to throw it out. Like if you guys if you're still here and you're still listening with us, like thank you so much for hanging out with us on this podcast episode. And it's always great. It always helps out the podcast if you throw a comment or a like on there, or share it with a friend. And if something jumps out at you and you wanted to ask me a question, or I always free and open for that. And you can always find me at Phillip Andrew LA at any of the social media stuff, Instagram, all those things. Or if you want to check out any of the motivational videos I do on Instagram, it's at Phillip Andrew LA. But we're going to keep talking, but there's my little commercial break of the plug. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. I appreciate it.
no, I'm glad you did that. And actually, I want to let everyone know that on the show notes page for today's episode, which again is episode 153, I'm going to have his links, and I'll throw in those social media links as well. So his website is philipandrew.co, and or again, find him at Phillip Andrew LA at his social media, all his social media stuff, and definitely connect. So again, have absolutely loved our conversation today. I love all the nuggets that you shared and all the, you've just really sparked a lot of thought for me today. And I love that. And I know that listeners have gotten a lot from what you've shared. So I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable and sharing your story and then the strategies, and thank you for the big impact that you're making. We didn't even get to dive into like the kinds of TV stuff that you're doing, if any of this is aligned with the impact that you're making kind of more on the personal side.
Yeah. Well, we did, we had one show that, I worked on a program that was, it's where the Emmy nominated comes from, right? And that's why I love it. In the bio. It's always better when other people say it. It sounds awful when you're talking about yourself.
I am Emmy nominated. Yeah.
Yeah. But
you
so
should be
actually,
proud of that. Yes.
I think it's really cool to be able to, it's just nice when you're around other people that are working hard and they really appreciate it. So like one of the show that I worked on that we were Emmy nominated was for outstanding educational programming for the daytime Emmys. And it's a show called Mindfield on YouTube Red. And it is it's all based in psychology. And it's we would take a psychological theory and we would just take a whole episode and we would dedicate it to that. So we did an episode about isolation, where what's the effects of isolation on the brain, and everything from people that are doing, that do the float labs, like the isolation float tanks, to people that, we interviewed people that had spent time in solitary confinement. We talked with wardens and inmates, and then it always builds to this big demonstration of like our host, a very, very smart guy named Michael Stevens. He has a channel called Vsauce, but he then locked himself in a isolation chamber for 3 days. And then we did a bunch of different cognitive studies, and checked in on him. We did another episode. I had the opportunity to go to Peru, and we did an entire episode about psychedelic drugs and ayahuasca, which is hilarious because I'm like the sober producer, like over here, like working on these drug shows. And so we did that. We had one that we were nominated for was a show all about the greater good and examining this idea behind how far should we push studies? At what point have we crossed the line into, with things like the Stanford prison experiment or the Milgram experiments and if you don't know what those are, I'm just throwing them out there. So if they're interesting, I don't even want to tell you about them because I want you to go do some research and figure out if it's something that's interesting to you. But it's just this idea of, I guess the way the easiest to say it is we always hear, right? You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. But how many eggs? Right? Like if we only got one breakfast, but we had to crush 1,000 eggs, would it be worth it? So it's like, where's that line?
Yeah.
Where's that line between how far we can? So it's just to be able to work on projects. And then look, I've done dating shows. I've done other shows that are, that don't have as much intellectual substance behind them. And I think it's all fun. Like right now I'm on a current project for Fox that'll be out later in 2019. That's all fitness based. And so I get to be all over the place, but when you get to work on a show that the content is very high level and that people are going to be not only entertained, but they're going to be educated. I mean, that's what I love. I love the ability to teach people, to help people expand, to grow in using video to do that. And whether that is on a $1 million an episode budget, or if it's me with my iPhone in a park and a little microphone, putting out minute content, I think I love all of it. Like I really do. And I feel so blessed that, I went for it because I was a little kid that always loved entertainment. And there were a lot of times along the way where I didn't know if it was something that like a kid from Metro Detroit could do. And I didn't know if it was something that, I didn't know anyone that worked in the business. I didn't know any of those things. And I'd never been west of Wisconsin when I moved up to LA.
Wow.
And I feel very lucky, and I'm so happy the way that my path has kind of worked out. And I'm really excited for the future. So
wow.
I love to, yeah.
Thank you so much. Again, you really are an inspiration, and I know that you have motivated people and not only given them wisdom, some ideas, but also the inspiration to go out and make their own impact as well. So thank you again for all the amazing work that you're doing. I'm glad that you are scattered with your projects and doing so many different things. So I'm grateful for the impact that you're making in this world. We need you. So keep at it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so
I appreciate that.
So again, guys, go check him out, phillipandrew.co or at Phillip Andrew LA. Connect with him, reach out, and have him to your events to speak, or reach out to him for coaching. Help him make this world a better place by using his impact. And thank you so much for joining us. And again, the show notes will be at defeatthedrama.com. Click on the podcast tab, and today's episode is 153. So get out there and make your own impact and make it a great day.